Last episode, we heard about Lucy's heart surgery. This episode, we're going to talk about everything that's happened since. So Lucy was 16 months when she had a surgery, and she's now 3.5. So we're going to do a quick fast forward.
Right. Okay.
With Craig.
With me. Hello, everybody. I don't know why I'm waving. I felt the need to wave.
Yeah.
But I was at the beginning of this journey with you, and I popped in the middle, and I'm here at the end just to kind of like help you get everybody up to speed with current events. So let's go back. We've got your mum was in the last episode.
Yes.
Lovely Julie Sharp.
Yes.
And now that was all about the surgery and what happened just after that.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the recovery and how well that went, and any hiccups or anything like that.
So we brought Lucy home, I think it was 6 days post-surgery, and we were terrified of picking her up. They kept talking about the fact that we could burst her stitches if we picked her up the wrong way. So that was the scariest part of bringing her home, really, because she was still a baby. At that point, she wasn't crawling, so she needed us to lift her a lot. So, before we left, we did get a demonstration from one of the nurses on the best way to lift her to protect her scar on her chest and everything. So the first few days were just trepidation, really, just being frightened of hurting her, frightened of stitches bursting. But I mean, she was 6 days post-surgery at this point. They were already starting to heal. It was incredible to watch. The nurses asked me to take pictures of her scar every couple of days, which I have on my phone. And sometimes I open that folder by accident and give people a fright if I'm trying to show them a picture, because it is quite gruesome. But actually, within a week of being home, it was starting to, it was fully kind of healed, and it was already starting to fade. It was an incredible thing to watch. So we just stayed at home for a week or so and just allowed Lucy that time to relax and recover. But me being me, desperate to get out of the house, desperate to get back to normal. So I would say within a couple of weeks, we were back out and about, and we kept her off childcare, and I stayed off work, and we just kind of met up with friends. I did drive down to Yorkshire with her.
Right.
Quite early on, but, I was desperate to see family, so I took her down to Yorkshire, and we had an afternoon tea with my mum and my aunts and my and some extended family, and that was lovely, just getting everybody together and just allowing everybody to take that deep breath and say, Lucy's okay. She's had a surgery, and look, because I think people wanted to physically see her as well. I think people were kind of, are you sure she's okay, Laura? Yes, she is. Look, here, she's thriving already. And literally within a few weeks, she was thriving. And they said recovery could be, I think, something like up to 10 weeks.
Right.
Within 6 weeks, she was, I think I said on the last episode, within 6 weeks, she was bear crawling, and then within another couple of weeks she started 4-point crawling, which was much faster than anybody expected. Yeah.
So I'm curious, because of the heart situation, am I right in, because my science is not great, that perhaps she was not getting as much oxygen into her system because the heart wasn't working at full capacity, and then because of the surgery it's now pumping at full capacity, as it were. So she's a lot more oxygenated, and therefore her brain can work quicker and she can move quicker. Is that kind of a summation of it?
Yeah. I think it's different for all children, depending on, even though Lucy had a common heart defect that comes with Down syndrome, which is a complete AVSD. And I can't tell you what AVSD stands for, but we'll put it on the website. But that heart condition is very common, but Lucy's wasn't the typical presentation of that heart defect, because she had one of the holes which is the hole, I can't remember, but it's the hole in the part of the heart that is the most to do with feeding the lungs.
Right.
That hole was very small, and then it plugged itself with a bit of tissue.
Okay.
From the valve.
Okay.
So the valve wasn't formed correctly, because that's why it's called a complete AVSD, because she's got 2 holes and a valve that needs repair.
Okay.
But that valve, because it wasn't formed correctly, had some spare tissue hanging around, from what we understand, and the hole nicked that tissue and plugged itself.
Okay.
Which was basically the human body repairing itself.
Amazing.
And that meant that Lucy didn't need to be on oxygen because her lungs were able to work quite effectively. The hole in the other part of the heart, which I think is more to do with the blood pumping around the body.
Okay.
I think that was the hole that was the bigger hole, which meant Lucy, yes, her entire body wasn't getting enough oxygen because it wasn't getting the blood flow correctly. Which meant that she was quite pale. She wasn't sort of bluish, which some children can be, but she was sort of pale and would mottle easily. She still does mottle easily. That's kind of one of those things that goes with having Down syndrome. It's to do with the regulation of the body temperature. Okay. It doesn't always work brilliantly. So she does mottle easily, but she was mottling more before she had a heart surgery. But I think we were lucky in the fact that that hole that was linked to the lungs wasn't very big and then plugged itself, because that meant she never needed the oxygen, which a lot of children do need. And yeah, post-repair, she was just a ball of energy, and still is now, isn't she?
She is absolutely a ball of energy. Never stops. And she just looks like any other healthy kid.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. I mean, you can see there's like a tiny little, I mean, the top of a scar actually formed a heart, which is very cute. And that, you know, you can spot that if she's wearing certain clothes. And some people do kind of go like, oh, because it is quite a, you know, it's an obvious scar. But yeah, if you didn't see that, you would never know that she'd needed heart surgery or had heart surgery.
She was 16 months when she had that.
When she had the surgery.
And then when did she attend like preschool? When did that sort of happen?
She was already at childminders before a surgery. So we just kept her off childminders while she had a surgery and for a month or so after. But I think we both kind of got back to normal. So she had a surgery at the beginning of January 2023, and we were both kind of ready to get back to normal after 8 weeks. So it was sometime in the March. Lucy went back to childminders and I went back to work.
Okay.
Probably too soon for me personally. Lucy was fine.
Yeah.
Lucy was ready to go back to childminders. She was bored being at home with me. She missed her friends at childminders. She was ready. So she went back. I tried to go back to work, let's say. I don't think it's fair to say I went back to work, because I may have been there in body, but I was not there in mind.
Right.
And my mum, still holding the other baby of the business, had to continue to do that for me, because I had a lot to process after Lucy's heart surgery. Even though we knew it was going to be happening, even though it went pretty smoothly, even though her recovery was great, I still had a lot to process, and I needed some time to do that. And I went and sought, you know, found myself some counselling and worked on that so that I was more able to be present and be able to work and be there for Lucy and John as well, and you know, get myself back to normal, really.
So childminders, is she doing, did she start preschool? Like is she in sort of, you know, like, because when I was a kid, you did school, but before school you did sort of a preschool.
Yeah, which they call school nursery.
School nursery.
So you start school nursery when you've turned 3. You can start school nursery in the September after you turn 3, I think it is. I'm, again, first-time mum, not an expert at these things, but I think that's right.
Right.
So Lucy turned 2 that August. In the meantime, between the March and the August, our childminders closed down.
Right.
Which, again, you know, not the childminders' fault. They needed to close. It wasn't working for them. But for me, it was a big blow because they were very one-on-one with her a lot of the time. They were really working on her speech sounds. They were working on her physio. They were helping her to crawl and learning to walk. And they were fantastic. And I knew she wouldn't get that level of support in a bigger nursery environment. So I was worried about it. So I did quite a bit of research when they said they were closing down I think they gave us sort of a month or so's notice. And from the May to the June, I did lots of research and spoke to lots of mums in the local area. And there was a couple of families who'd had children at this specific nursery at the bottom of our road that had their children had Down syndrome. And they had good things to say about that nursery. So that gave me the confidence. And if anybody is looking for a nursery for their child and their child has Down syndrome or any kind of learning disabilities or any disabilities whatsoever, I think, try and talk to other parents in the area that you know that have got slightly older children, and where did their children go and what did they do? Because that's so reassuring to know that they were pleased with how the nursery supported their child. So she started private nursery near where we live in the July, just before she turned 2. And she's been there ever since. So she's been there 18 months now. She's 3.5. Or over 18 months, about 20 months now. And she loves it. They've been fantastic. They've been really supportive. And they've applied for the funding that you can get, a thing called DAF funding, Disability Access Funding. And that's from the council. And that gives them that extra bit of cash to enable them to have enough staff so that Lucy can have one-to-one time regularly during the day. She has sort of 2 or 3 kind of 15, 20-minute slots where sometimes it'll be in the room amongst the other children, but they'll just focus on her, or they'll take her into a quiet room and do some work with her. And that's really working on, obviously she has targets set,
right, and
they're working on those targets all the time. And the targets are set predominantly by the speech and language person that she's been seeing since she was about 4 months old.
Right.
What most of the country call portage person, who in Newcastle is called a SENDOS person, which is Send Outreach Service. I don't know why we call them something different in Newcastle, but she does the same as a portage worker would do, which is learning through play.
Okay.
So the speech and language therapist and the SENDOS lady both work very closely together to help Lucy to learn to talk, to learn to play, to learn through play, and therefore help her with her speech. So they work very closely, and they used to come to our house every couple of months, and now they go to nursery a couple of times every term, and they spend a bit of time with Lucy, and then they come up with targets. And so those targets are then fed back into her key worker at nursery, who works on that with her in a one-to-one time. And NHS Physio do the same. So we've been seeing NHS Physio since she was about 6 months old.
Right.
And they've obviously helped her enormously with physical development, with walking, etc. Although they did get a bit of a shock because they felt when they saw her in October last year, she was still a way off walking. And within 3 weeks of that appointment, Lucy just took off walking, which shocked everybody, including her NHS physio lady. But they're all fab, they're really supportive. And like I say, they'll come into nursery, they'll set targets, they'll work with nursery so that nursery know what they're working on with Lucy. And everything's really focused. And then once a term, I go in for a meeting with them all, where we all discuss what targets has she met, what are her new targets, etc., etc. So it works really well.
So in terms of development, the key thing, the key things, language, and I know that she has Makaton. And for those of you who don't know what Makaton is, it's
an aid to speech.
An aid to speech. So
it's simplified British Sign Language.
Yes, because I know a little bit. We were talking before the show today about, I used to know, I probably could remember if I thought about it, bits of British Sign Language. But this is much more simplified.
Yes.
And much easier for little people, little children to grasp.
Yes.
And
Mr. Tumble does it. Everybody's heard of Mr. Tumble.
Mr. Tumble.
Mr. Tumble
Absolutely.
does Makaton, and that's one of the ways I've learned. It's by watching lots of Mr. Tumble.
So you've got that, and then and her language. So she does use speech now, particularly when she wants something. As I've discovered. But she's quite a ball of energy. So in terms of development, what is the sort of trajectory of for education for someone like Lucy compared to your average child, able-bodied, if that is the full full able-bodied child,
typical,
that's the word I was looking for, typical. So you've got a typical child. What is a typical and where is, and I mean, is it right or wrong to compare? But you've got to have a kind of standard bench to go like, okay, is she the equivalent of, is she in her development, is she the equivalent of a typical child at what age? Because that helps us all kind of grasp where she's at.
So even during pregnancy, when I was doing my research, I learned that you're not to make comparisons.
Right.
You're really not meant to do that.
But even though we will.
But we do, because we're all human and we all worry and we all think, what's going to happen and da-da-da. So as much as you try not to, you can't help yourself but to make comparisons. And there have been points during Lucy's life in the last 3.5 years where I have been at a baby group where we've been the only family with a disabled child, or out and about at a play park or something, where it can sometimes hit you a little bit and you think, you see all these children around her and some of them are a lot younger than her but are saying a lot more than her, running and jumping, doing things that, and especially before Lucy could walk, I couldn't help myself. I did find it difficult. Me being me, I wanted to get out there. I wanted to be amongst the community. I wanted to, build that network as well. I wanted a network. I've quite easily built a network of people who have children with Down syndrome because we all want to connect. We all want to support each other. But I was conscious that being an older mum, being a first-time mum, I didn't know many other mums with small children and specifically typical children. I was like, I want to get out there. I want to get amongst them and see, if I can find any simpatico, find any friends. And it wasn't easy for me because I am an older mum and I've got a child with a disability. But, I shout out to my fab friends who have been there for me and supported me from day one. And I met a couple of them locally through just a local mums group, really, in our local children's community cafe called the Owl Tree, which Lucy loves to going there. And I've met lots of fab friends there. So, yes, over the time, you do sometimes make the comparisons, but every child with Down syndrome is different. Like every child is different. They are all different. And you do eventually, it takes a long time, but I am slowly learning that Lucy is an individual and she will do everything in her own time, her own way, with her own personality quirks and her own determination. And if I make comparisons, all I'm doing is upsetting myself and potentially could upset Lucy. If I continue to do that and Lucy starts to pick up on that, that could be quite damaging to her. And but like I say, I'm only just starting to learn that now after 3.5 years. I have been guilty of, I can see that child's doing that. Why isn't Lucy doing that? And and speaking to the professionals that support Lucy, like her physio, NHS physio, we also paid for some private physio because I was so keen to get Lucy on her feet. I did get some private physio help for that. And her Sendos lady, her speech and language therapist, I've been guilty of saying to them, how can we get Lucy to do this, X, Y, or Z? And they're like, Lucy will do it in her own time. We are doing everything. We are building the blocks, Laura, that will enable Lucy to do that in her own time. So I've been told to chill a few times in the nicest way.
I am sure you have. So am I right in thinking that some of the more, with her movement, that is about muscle development?
Yes.
So her muscles don't, particularly because she had the heart condition at the beginning as well. That would have contributed.
A bit weaker than a typical child.
So that physio will have enabled that, obviously post-surgery. So it's really kind of getting that strength getting her strength into her limbs.
And her joints.
And her joints.
Her joints are hypermobile, which is quite common with Down syndrome.
So to get her to the point where we've done all the background work, it's down to the child's confidence.
Yeah. And a lot of last year was building confidence. The private physio, I remember the private physio said to me in something like March last year when she was just over 2.5, Lucy has the ability to walk now, Laura. Because she was walking, holding hands. She was holding two, we could walk behind her and she could hold two hands. A bit like when a child's, say, 10 months or whatever and starting to learn to walk. She was able to do that. She had the strength to do that. She would get wobbly. She would tire easily still, but she was building that strength up. And she said, really from here on in, it's a confidence building project. And these are the things you need to do to help her build a confidence. And she was great. And she helped us to understand what we needed to do. to basically back off a bit.
Right.
Let Lucy just figure it out for herself and stop, I mean, even now we're guilty of helping her over like thresholds if there's a bit of a step. And the NHS physio that's still working with her now says, we've got to stop. We've got to hold the hands back and if she really wants to get in that room, she'll figure out how to get in herself without us, holding her hand and helping her. So
now, at what age was she when she started to walk?
So she turned 3 in the August and she started walking in the November.
Okay.
So 3 in a few months.
3 in a few months. And in terms of saying first words and...
So probably because I'm a chatterbox, Lucy's speech did come quite quick. Stop rolling your eyes.
I remember because I just know you, Laura. I just know you. And I was like, I love the understatement of the show. I'm a bit of a chatterbox.
Bit of a chatterbox.
Bit of a chatterbox, yes.
So Lucy and I did baby signing classes together from quite early on. I started taking her to those when she was about, I think, 8 or 9 months old. And we stayed with them for a good year or so. And every term there were 10-week terms, and we counted to 10, and we learnt lots of different signs to do with animals, to do with playing in the park, to do. The lady Lee that runs the classes in Brunton Park is called Communikids. A little shout out to Lee. She is a brilliant teacher, and she helped Lucy and I learn Makaton. And I did feel a bit like, why are we doing this? Because she's not, to start with, she wasn't doing the signs. I was doing all the signs and Lucy was just watching me, probably a bit bewildered, like, why is Mum doing all this stuff? And then it was funny, actually. It was post-heart surgery. She did her first sign. Not in a class.
Right.
In the hospital, post-heart surgery. She woke up, and I'd been signing more forever and ever and ever. And she just suddenly, because she was hungry and wanted more toast, signed more. She didn't say it, but she signed more. And she was 16 months then. And I just was like, wow. And the trajectory of the signing from that point was incredible.
Wow.
Within 2 or 3 weeks, she seemed to be signing 5 or 6 signs easily. She was doing food, she was doing drink, she was doing loads of different signs. And it meant that she was able to tell me what she needed, which was the whole reason we were doing it, before she could talk. And being an aid to speech, it then did push her speech on. So I can remember just before she turned 2, so we're talking like 6 months after this point, she was doing loads and loads and loads of signs. And we were in the garden. It was the summer because she turned 2 in the August. And I'm sure it was like the late July, early August. I think I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something to her in the garden. She just suddenly did the sign for star and said star.
Right.
I heard star and I was like, pardon? And I couldn't get her to do it again, and it was really frustrating. It took about a week for her to do it again.
Right.
But that one word did come out with the sign, and that's where it clicked for me as well. It was like, this really works. Like, the 2 first signs she learned that she was showing us was more and probably star.
Right.
And they were her first 2 words.
Wow.
So star was her very first word. But like I say, a week or so, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, the word more came out with more.
Right.
And the sign for food, because she loves her food. She's the little foodie adventurer, as we call her on Instagram.
Indeed.
She has her own Instagram. And those words came and they were the first signs. So then I realised as her speech started to develop, it was all in line with the signs that she learned. So the first few signs she learned were the first few words she spoke. And it was just incredible and fantastic, and made me, all those hours of watching Mr. Tumble and watching the lovely Singing Hands ladies. Another shout out to the Singing Hands ladies who come up through Down Syndrome Northeast and do a show for us every year, because Caroline Turner, that you met on an earlier episode, she organises for the Singing Hands ladies to come up. And the kids love those shows. So the Singing Hands ladies do lots of Makaton signing to lots of different songs. So they do it to lots of nursery rhymes, but they also do it to pop songs. So it enables the children to stay with them right through as they're learning to talk. And, and they want... So Lucy still loves a nursery rhyme. She's 3.5.
Right.
But I can see in a couple of years' time, knowing the way she is with music and dance and stuff, she's going to get more into the pop songs.
Indeed.
And the fact that they do those is great. So all those hours of sitting watching YouTube, singing Hands and watching Mr. Tumble and going to Lee's Community Kids classes, it all paid off. It was worth it. And yeah, the
like you say, landing all those building blocks, all those support things, so that all the tools are there. It's just her having the right moment in her development, in her inner self, having that confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And she does.
Yeah.
So, looking forward, you know, at some point she's going to go into school.
Sorry, yes, you were asking me about nursery and school and stuff, weren't you? So we kept Lucy in private nursery the year that she could have been in school nursery, because she was so well settled, and she still felt, because she's an August baby at 3, she felt very young to go into a school environment, because she would have been 3 in like 2 weeks when she would have gone into school nursery. So we kept her in private nursery, and then we've continued to do that really by holding her back a year.
Okay.
So when she turns 4 this August, she should be starting reception.
Okay.
Which I think probably is a bit like your preschool that you were talking about.
Well, when I was different myself, I started, a lot of kids started school probably 5.
Yeah.
But when I was a boy, I started at 4.
Well, they do now start reception at 4. They can do school nursery from 3, reception from 4, and year 1 is 5.
Yeah. So I did. That's kind of roughly maybe my year 1 primary. I was 4.
Wow.
So I did it. I was a bit ahead.
Yeah. Well, what we've decided to do for Lucy with her being an August baby and having Down syndrome, it was kind of a no-brainer to hold her back a year. So instead of starting reception in September, she's going to start nursery, school nursery in September. So she gets used to the school environment before she goes into reception. She has a year in school, but it's a nursery year where, again, she gets that opportunity to develop her language more and develop her, I mean, she's already counting 1 to 5, no bother. She absolutely loves, nursery rhymes with counting in. So she's counting 1 to 5, which the lady from the school she's going to that came to one of the meetings at nursery recently was a bit like, wow, you're doing our job for us. Like, she's going to be ahead of some of the, the other kids in nursery. But that's why we do it. So the charity that I talked about in a previous episode, Positive About Down Syndrome, they're a national charity, and they have specific Facebook groups for the stage you're in. The stage you're at, they also do what's called PEGS, which is, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's to do with early development learning. So it's basically like a kind of carbon copy of what Lucy Sendos, Portage, and speech and language therapist have done with her from birth. So that from a few months old. It's lots of videos that show you how to help your child build those building blocks with, lots of focus on language and numbers and things like that, and whose turn is it, and memory games and lots of things like that help our children to learn. They provide that in an online way. So, because there are parts of the country where they're not as lucky as us, where it's a fight for them to get that Portage help or get that speech and language therapist help. We're very lucky in Newcastle. It's a very well-organised, well-oiled system that does, as long as you get those referrals early on through your paediatrician, you'll get that support in place early on, and you'll be doing a lot of the stuff that Positive About Down Syndrome help people with. We were doing it in real life as well as I did it online as well. So I watched the videos and learned how to help Lucy myself. And that's all the building blocks that enable her when she starts school nursery in September. She'll be in a similar place to the other kids around her that are actually going to be a year younger than her.
Right.
But she'll be in a similar place to them.
Oh, okay. So
that's
that makes
why
sense.
we're holding her back. Because she's roughly, so at the moment she's just over 3.5. But, again, we're not supposed to make comparisons. But if we do,
it can help.
A lot of where she's at, education-wise, is roughly about a year behind. She's about a 2.5-year-old with a, maybe even slightly, maybe even a year and a half behind, because she didn't learn to walk till she was over 3, and her speech and language is slowly coming, but it's still, she's up to sort of 3-word sentences.
So the idea is that you would put her into mainstream school.
So it's a funny one. We were very kind of in two minds about mainstream or special needs school. And as with a lot of things, a lot of decision making, we talk to each other. John and I talk to each other about it, and we might talk to family and friends, but a lot of people are a bit like, don't know. You kind of need to go. That's why we're very lucky we have those professionals. They're the people we go to say, we're not sure what to do here. What do you think? And sometimes they have to, they're not allowed to give their opinion, and they're not allowed to guide you or push you in a direction, but they are able to talk it. They're quite happy to talk it through with you. And actually, if I think back to the conversations I was having with them, they were leading me to putting Lucy in mainstream, but allowing me to make that decision, or John and I to make that decision for ourselves. Because
the question would be, if you put a child in an environment, I'll rephrase it. If you put a child in an environment with similar children with the similar kind of health conditions, would she thrive? Or if she is put in mainstream, is she going to be somewhat provoked developmentally by those other kids who will run faster, and actually will that elevate her and push her forward? And I might be on the side of the latter. I'd be like, actually, if I put her in school, mainstream school, with, she's going to be coming up for 4, developmentally, and I put her in, so she might be 5, but she's in with 4-year-olds, but developmentally they're all about the same parity, the same age. She may then be able to thrive and grow with them and move faster than if you put her in with children with similar conditions. They might hold her back. I don't know, but I'm asking that sort of, it's a difficult one, I think.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. And again, because all children with Down syndrome are different, it's a very individual decision. It's not a one school fits all scenario. So Lucy is a child who likes to copy.
Right.
We have to watch our swearing.
Doesn't every parent? I mean, usually it's the first word is the first words might be like mummy or star or whatever, but sometimes third or fourth might be a swear.
Yeah.
And as much as that can be quite hilarious at times, we have to suppress our laughter because we don't wish to encourage them.
No, it's not ideal. So so she likes to emulate people around her. She likes to build relationships. She likes to make people laugh. She likes to, now she's able to say people's names. She was, able to shout your name quite a lot.
She knows my name, yes.
So, she's a sociable little girl and she likes to copy. So that's kind of where her specialists, her professionals were leading me to mainstream, because they said being around typical children will be good for Lucy, because she'll thrive in that environment, because she'll want to keep up with them. She wants to build relationships with them. She wants to, push herself to be part of those groups. Whereas there are children, that can be very similar to Lucy in a lot of ways, but don't have that interest. And putting them in that environment will actually make them withdraw and be quieter and not enjoy that environment. Therefore, a certain type of special school might be better for that child. And then you have children who just don't. Sometimes I'm sure Caroline and I did discuss this on an earlier episode. Her son Leo has a dual diagnosis with autism. And that means that, the interaction with those around them is much less. Therefore, they're better to be in another type of special school where they get a lot more one-to-one, because that's where they thrive, in that kind of one-to-one environment with an adult, as opposed to around other children where they might become overwhelmed or whatever. So, like I say, all children are different. And the great thing is, you might not feel like it when you start thinking about schools, but there are loads of different types of schools that all have very different specialities.
Okay.
So we've picked a mainstream school that is a very SEN-friendly mainstream school.
Okay.
So they have a lot of SEN children already. They have a full-time SEN coordinator who is fabulous. And we are very lucky that we have that on our doorstep. And again, you know, some people have to travel to find those types of schools. But it's worth it, because in the long run, it is about finding the right environment for your child, and you do have to put the legwork in that. We did see quite a few different schools in our local area, and that one just shone out for us.
Right.
And it may have not for another parent of another child who has SEN. They may have felt that the type of SEN children they have in their school isn't right, isn't a good fit for their SEN child. It is so personal. And we don't expect Lucy to necessarily stay right through mainstream. But again, we've been told by her professionals, please keep an open mind. Because I'm a bit like, well, she's in a 3-tier system in Newcastle, which is still a very unusual system. Most places in the country now, it's just like junior. Well, I can't remember what they call it nowadays. But for me, it was junior and senior school. Yeah. I don't know what they call it these days. But in Newcastle, we have a specific 3-tier system. So you have a middle school, you have like a junior, a middle, and a high school.
Yeah, that's kind of
that system, didn't you? So I didn't. I just did the two. Well, I did like infants and then juniors and then seniors. So I'm kind of the mindset that Lucy might do the junior and the middle bit, but she might not do the senior bit, which involves GCSEs and stuff.
Right.
But I've been told if she makes a really good group of friends that she's moving through that system with, and they are supporting her, and she's got the right support in place to be able to learn, don't be closed-minded, Laura.
No.
Don't just automatically assume you're going to move her to a SEN school at a certain point. Just let Lucy guide you. Let Lucy show you and tell you. Because we're in a lucky position that we should be able to get that from Lucy. We should be able to get that feedback.
She'll tell you.
And I've got friends who have been in that situation where they've got started in mainstream, and then they've come and said, I'm struggling, and they've chosen a SEN school, and that child is absolutely thriving in that SEN school now, because they went round the SEN schools and picked the one that they felt was right for their for their child. So it is, it's about what works for that child, and that child will tell you.
And in specifically with Lucy, being a social child, being gregarious and out there like her parents, very much like her parents, she will, it seems to me, thrive because of that. And so, get her into mainstream and let her fly with it. And, she's... my impression of her is that just like a typical child plays one parent against the other, those traits that you find with typical children are very typical with Lucy. Yes. So I can see already that whilst, she's slower on the developmental wheel at the moment, but once she's in with the right developmental age group, which is what you're doing really smartly, I think, that she should fly.
Yeah, hopefully she will, yeah.
There might be a block later on, but meet that block, build a bridge over it, and you just keep, there's a new thing, and on it goes. So, the future. So, we have a 3.5-year-old who is very active. Here's a question I have for you. Diet-wise, what do you feed her? I mean, is there any...
Do you think I'm just giving her spinach or something?
I don't know.
She never stops.
She never stops. I feel like, she's on something, because she's a dynamo. So is there something, with children with Down syndrome and maybe other conditions? Is there, are they just fed just like any other kid? You know, is it still, they still get their funny shaped pizzas and their, you know, are they still, do they eat what normal kids eat? And then that sounds like not me being strange about it, but because she has developmental or has had developmental situations where you go, well, actually, yeah, we have to keep her on a special diet, or she's got allergies, or she's got other that haven't really been at the forefront. But now, because a lot of the other things have been fixed, that she's now got like, well, actually, yeah, she's, you know, lactose intolerant and she's this and she's that and the other. So
intolerances for children with Down syndrome can be quite common. One of the lactose intolerance, funnily enough, is quite a common one. But that's very quickly established when they're babies because of the milk.
But one of the things that's really interesting is, of course, more than 80% of the world's human population is lactose intolerant. Being lactose tolerant is very, very specific to the northern hemisphere, and particularly with Caucasians.
Yes, well, I am. I'm lactose intolerant. I still eat lots of cheese and regret it. I have lactose-free milk. I have oat milk, things like that. And I don't tend to have a lot of cream because, you know, and Lucy's a bit the same. So she coped okay with the milk, but that's one of the reasons we talked in an earlier episode about weaning, and we started her on probiotics very young, because that was, again, recommended through Positive About Down syndrome, that they are doing studies and looking at these things because children with Down syndrome, they think, are born with a slightly dodgy gut flora.
Okay.
Dodgy is probably a terrible word to use, but I don't know when.
Compromised.
Yeah, potentially.
Potentially compromised gut flora.
So probiotics help with that from early on. And I think because we use them, and she took herself off milk quite young. John hates milk. I don't drink milk. It was weird. Like, it was like there was no reason for her to know any of that, but it was almost like she knew, because she stopped wanting to drink it from quite early on in the weaning process. But we were lucky with weaning. It was, again, like with everything with Lucy, it felt in the first couple of months like we weren't making any progress. Right. She wasn't enjoying it. We weren't enjoying it. Not a lot was happening. She was kind of only really eating the porridge, but she wasn't eating a lot of the purees. She wasn't getting a lot of fruit and veg in her, and I was panicking all the time, thinking this isn't working. And it was, again, the professionals and lots of friends and family kept saying to me, take a step back. You're trying too hard, Laura. Which, again, is a running theme.
But that's fine. It's part of your personality. Go on.
Yeah, so I took a step back, and I was good. And I think there was a point about 2 months in where I was really stressed. And I was advised by lots of people, just take a step back, maybe just start again. Start from scratch and try not putting so much pressure on Lucy. Allow Lucy time to discover what she does and doesn't like. Because like any child, she does have kind of preferences.
Right.
But it turned out really what she wanted to do was do it herself, which, again, is a running theme with Lucy, that she didn't want to be fed with this spoon shoved in her face. Okay. She wanted to take the spoon off you and do it herself. But because she was little and her coordination wasn't great, that was quite stressful and quite messy.
Okay.
But we had to just get the plastic mats on the floor. Uh-huh. We got a fantastic thing, which lots of mums have asked me about over the years when they've seen pictures of Lucy's high chair. We got this thing called a catchy that was just a plastic tray. I mean, I wish I'd thought of inventing it. The company must be making fortunes. It goes on any high chair on the legs and catches the food as it drops. Wow. So instead of cleaning the floor, you're just cleaning this plastic ledge thing. Wow. With a cloth, and you don't bend down as much because it's higher up. Oh, okay. It's just brilliant. And getting things like that in place, we just put it on the tray and stepped away. Aha! Got out the way and let Lucy get on with it. And actually, that's why Lucy is called the Little Foodie Adventure on Instagram. Because once we did that, and once she got what was happening, and once she was able to pick different things off the plate and figure out what she did and didn't like, she just ran with it. Okay. And there was no stopping her. And she eats pretty much anything. She weirdly doesn't like pears, and I don't like pears. Again, she's got no idea I don't like pears, other than the fact we don't have them in the house. But at nursery, I know for a lot of parents, nursery updates on food is really stressful. It's how much have they eaten today? Did they try any of the new food? Did they eat any veg? Did they eat any fruit? We've got the opposite problem with Lucy. Lucy gets, her updates are 8 all, 8 all, 8 all, 8 all, to the point where we've had to say to nursery, can you stop giving her double toast at breakfast, please? She eats the whole lot of toast and then asks for more toast, and they give it to her because she's so good at asking. And now she's saying more toast, please, like she's doing the 3-word sentence. That they are so overjoyed she's saying it. They can't say no to her, and we're like, need to watch her calories. So we've kind of got the opposite problem. And that, again, is a bit of a brain receptor thing that I've read about early on, that she maybe doesn't know when she's full.
Well, they say it takes about 20 minutes for the brain, the stomach to tell the brain, or the stomach brain, if you like, to tell the brain. With your typical human. Yeah. With somebody, it's going to be a little bit slower.
Exactly. I think that's part of the issue, is she doesn't know when she's full, and if she does, then it's too late. She's already eaten too much. But, because of her heart condition, she always did burn more calories. So she was always very slim before her surgery. And that was, the doctor said that was something to do with the fact her heart was working harder to work normally, and she would burn more calories that way. And then post-surgery, she stayed slim, and she does seem to burn calories. So she can eat a lot, and she's still very slim, but we are very conscious that going forward as she gets older, we will probably need to be a little bit careful around her calorie intake.
Managing it.
Yeah, just to help her so that she's not overeating and piling the weight on. So, but so you asked about kind of allergies and stuff. So Lucy doesn't have any allergies other than, like, if she eats too many yogurts, she gets a bit kind of refluxy.
I think we all get a bit refluxy after too many yogurts.
Well, this is it. And again, I think this is a lactose thing, because she doesn't drink a lot of milk. She does have butter and cheese, and she loves those. But yeah, dairy-wise, I think yogurt is the main thing she eats a lot of, that we've got to be careful. And I think that's a bit like me. It's definitely, she's got that off me. But it's not so bad that she can't have it. It's just a volume issue. Like me when I eat all the brie at Christmas. And I get the worst heartburn, and I regret it, but never mind. It's worth it at the time.
It's worth it.
So, but it's one of the things that's tested for every year when the paediatrician sees her. She does a blood test, and they test for lots of things. So children, I think I've probably mentioned before, children with Down syndrome are they're more exposed to potentially getting leukemia.
Right.
But they are also, there's a few things they test for like that they know that children with Down syndrome are predisposed to. And one of them, celiac. So celiac is really, really common.
Okay.
And thyroid issues as well. So they test their thyroids, because a lot of children have weight issues as they get older, and that's often linked to their thyroid not working properly. So if anything, we think Lucy's levels are always like as if she's not got hyperthyroidism. Her thyroid doesn't work, isn't overworking, but it could, I think, in the future, which is and that kind of makes sense with how slim she is and how she burns her calories and stuff. Whereas if your thyroid's not working and it's slow, then you put weight on, don't you? And I think the drugs they give you to do with it don't help with your weight. I don't think. I'm not sure. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I know it's a common thing that they test for every year. And celiac's another one.
Wow.
So there are,
down the line, there are bridges that you may have to cross.
You need to keep an eye on, and there are things that some families are already dealing with that it's already come up and it's already, an issue for them. And it's, but the good thing is nowadays, at least you can go out for meals, and people are a lot more tolerant of intolerances. In restaurants and cafes and things, which, I think 15, 20 years ago, would have been a lot more challenging. Right.
And she sleeps now. She's good sleeping. She's at preschool, private nursery. And she will join mainstream school in September.
Yeah.
Wow.
So all change. School holidays will kick in.
Wow.
Because at private nursery, she's there all year round, and she's there full days a week. So yeah, it's going to be 5 shorter days and holidays off, and it's going to be a big change to our family. So. Going forwards with TN21, it'll be more up to date, navigating kind of, the week to week, living as a family, and coping with school and everything that comes with that.
Awesome. So, let's meet the lovely Lucy. You've heard so much about her. You've seen her. And before we end the show, the first season, we should meet her.
Yeah. Let's get her in.
Let's get her in.
So, you've heard all about Lucy. Now you get to meet her. Say hello.
Hello.
Say love you.
Yeah.
Are you proud of Mummy?
Yeah.
I'm proud of Lucy.
There's the lovely Lucy. She's just absolutely adorable. So Lucy, we've met. We've had the gonna have a baby. We've gone to having a baby, the complications. We've talked to lots of really incredible people from Down Syndrome Northeast. We've had a lovely Caroline Turner in.
Mm-hmm.
We had
Eleanor
Bagley in as well. And we had your mum in, of Julie Sharp. And there's been me.
Yes, thank you, Craig.
And it's been fascinating to get to know, for me, because as a friend I know some of it, but now I know all of it. I know all of it now. And there's the stuff that we cut out of the show we couldn't broadcast. Let me tell you, they may come with some extras later who we should wait and see.
The outtakes.
The outtakes. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. And, I hope that people listening have found it, helpful, useful, cathartic even, if you're going through a diagnosis at the moment, or you have a child with Down syndrome, or you just were interested to hear the sort of an inside perspective, really, of what goes on when you have that diagnosis. I really hope that it's helped people, because it hasn't been easy at times for me. It's been a cathartic process to go through this and bring all of that back up. But actually, and I know my counsellor would say the same, that it's been really helpful for me as well to kind of talk through it all and then compartmentalise, put it away. Let's move forward. Everything's going great, and we feel very lucky. We feel very, privileged to have Lucy in our lives, and we just want to share her really with the world now. So hence bringing her in and letting you all meet her.
Yeah, she's a little star. It might have been a second word, but maybe she was a foretelling really
Yes.
of what she
was going to be a star.
She's going to be a star. So, TN21, we've formatted now, so you've got the 6 episodes, but we're actually in the middle of doing this, and you'll be able to get the bite size. So each of the shows are being split into bite size, so you can watch them in between running after your children or grabbing a coffee, and they'll be on YouTube, as well as little excerpts on the main podcast networks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very exciting way of listening to the show, and seeing it.
Just breaking it up for people and maybe making it more manageable, I guess.
Exactly.
For busy parents.
So I've been Craig Wilde, and I've really enjoyed this experience, and I'm looking forward to series 2. Laura, what does the next 6 months look like for you? Or should we find out in series 2?
Let's find out in series 2. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. It's been TN21 with Laura Sharp.
Done it. Well done. Well done, hon. That was great. That's it?
Yeah.
Wow.
6 in the bag.
Thank you, Craig.
Niltoni Broadcast Network, NBN, popcorn for your ears.